Jesse, did you know I know you? Yeah, I know you.
What's up, guys? Alright, no, I've been out of this for a little bit. There really ain't much news, but I just come across the other day. Jason Garrett press conference about 1 minute long, so if you got a little time to watch this video, video was his words, and subscribe for when the season comes. Hope you guys are ready, man. I know I'm excited, trying to do everything. I'll have a couple videos up of a little bit of progress of it here soon. Probably within a week or two. So be on the lookout for that. All the microphones is still on it. All nations picking up. But as it games, there's not a whole lot going on. Not a lot of videos. I'm trying to dig and dig, but there's not a lot. I haven't found any videos of our OTAs yet. I will. I'll at least try. I'll be trying, but I hope you guys keep liking, commenting, subscribing. Hit up all Nation Books on Mark on Twitter, top 3. Sellers from the 1980s. Definitely one of my favorites. So hit all those guys up. Basically, a bunch of interviews right now. Those are kind of boring, so I would try to get them out. But anyway, here's what Jason Garrett has to say about what's going on and how we're gonna pretty much pursue the season this year. Well, let me know what you think. That's it. I'm out.
That's a really important time of year to be able to do that. But you're also installing stuff. Just the way the off season is structured and the way the practice schedules are structured throughout training camp, you really can't waste days. So we get a lot of our offense in, a lot of our defense in, the stuff we're doing in special teams. We'll address each of those things, and there'll be new stuff every day, new installation that we'll work through. We'll work a lot of different situations, but all the while, to your initial point, it's a big emphasis on fundamentals as well.
How more important that now? Steven said yesterday that 45 to 90 guys are new. And with so many new guys, I don't know how that compares to the past year, but so many new guys that it's even more important.
Yeah, I just think that's the nature of the league. There are a lot of young players on teams throughout the league. Our team is really young. We have 3 guys on our roster right now who are 30 years or older. We have a 30, a 31, and a 37. That means we have 87 guys who are in their 20s, and a lot of those guys in the 20s are 22, 23, 24. And, to your point, that's the nature of rosters in the NFL. There's turnover every year, and you really have to do a great job this time of year laying the foundation for your football team. And what I mean by that is laying out the expectations for how you want to do things, introducing your schemes, and really holding them accountable to learning each and every day, because it goes quickly. We're at OTA 5 today, and there's a lot of information for these guys to be able to handle in a short period of time. So these days matter.
Coaching more important. I mean, it's always important, but just with these young guys, it's even more. Get your base to be more fundamental with these guys.
Well, I think coaching is always important. We wouldn't do this if we didn't think it was important. But there's some different challenges when you have younger players. And again, you're trying to introduce them to how we do things, and then what we do, and then how we want them to do it. And that's a daily pursuit for us as coaches, position coaches, making sure their guys are getting it done the right way. You certainly rely on the examples of your more veteran players, guys who have been here, but you certainly have to coach detail every day.
Do you anticipate David Irving doing stuff today, and where's he at condition?
Yeah, don't anticipate him doing anything today.
You guys' opinion of Terrence Williams' situation changed after the video, the dash cam video came out, or where you guys with him?
Like we talked last.
Stories are different.
Yeah, like we talked last week, it's an ongoing investigation, so I don't want to comment too much on that situation. So we'll continue to gather information. We'll continue to follow the lead of the authorities and make our decisions as we go.
With DeMarcus Lawrence's season last year at 14.5 sacks, obviously he got attention as the year went on from teams. How does he combat that more this year? Because the teams have an off season to study him, and coaches and defenses have more tape to look at?
That's a good question. I think one of the best things about the NFL is that coaches around this league study the opponent, and they study trends, they study personnel, and you have to continue to grow and evolve. And so when you're talking about a player like that who has somewhat of a breakout year, he will get more attention, but I think he got more attention as the year went on. And the best way to combat that is you have other people who threaten the opposing offense. And if you have good rushers across the board, guys who can win, if he's getting a lot of attention, maybe they can win their one-on-ones and affect the game that way. So, you're always trying to be balanced, attack different ways in all parts of your team, and I think that's just another example of that.
You mentioned relying on veterans just a minute ago in terms of coaching. How much does the coaching dynamic change in the tight end room without Jason?
Well, obviously, Whit's been here for a long time and done it the right way for a long time, and you certainly take pride as a coach in coaching everybody, regardless of who's in the room with you. But when you have an example like that, that can help your coaching. You can explain something, you can show something, and you say, okay, now watch 82 do it first. And he really gives you, paints you a great picture for whatever technique that you're trying to get across to the rest of the players. So that becomes a little bit of a different challenge. Now he's out of it, and now some younger players get an opportunity to step up. And again, you're always taking great pride in coaching the technique and coaching the specifics and making sure all the players, whatever their experience level is, are on top of what you're asking them to do. But certainly those role models help. And so that'll be a nice challenge for Doug Nussmeier and really for everybody on offense.
What does Rico Gathers have to do to make this 53-man roster?
He just needs to get better, and we're really not talking about him as making the 53-man roster right now. Like, we're not talking about anybody in that regard. We're talking about coming in here and getting better every day. And as we all know, Rico hasn't played a lot of football in his life. He's done a really good job improving over the course of his time here. He's a different player now than he was a couple of years ago when he first showed up, but he just needs to play more football. We could practice 5 times a day. That wouldn't be enough for him and a lot of our younger players, just because they need so much work. So you got to take advantage of every rep you get. You have to be prepared, so when you go out on the field, it's a productive rep for you, and then you have to learn from it. And stay locked in on each day and keep trying to grow in every part of the game. And I think he's done a really good job of that.
He said last week he was healthy enough to come back and practice and be available to you guys after whatever that time, 7-week period was. Why'd you guys never bring him back?
There's a lot of discussion about a player coming off of injury. He did have a concussion, was in the concussion protocol for a long time, and then at the point that he was able to come back, we were too far along down in our season for him to be able to make a significant contribution. So obviously you want your players to continue to develop. We tried to do that with him last year, but that's really the reason why we made that decision, just where he was and where we were.
Was he on the cusp with the way he performed in the preseason of you maybe finding a niche for him to start the season out if that injury hadn't occurred?
Yeah, he did a lot of really good things for us, and there are some things that come much more naturally to him. I think his understanding of the passing game is better than his understanding of the running game. He certainly has excellent ball skills. His ability to run routes down the field and be a mismatched player, I think we all saw that. Those are all positive things. But he plays a challenging position. The demands of him at that position are pretty unique. You have to be able to be a run player. You have to be able to, be someone who understands protections and routes and adjustments and all of that. So you certainly do your best as coaches to put him in situations where he can grow in each of those areas as you define what his role might be to help you. And so he certainly was showing some elements of being able to help us until he had the injury. So hopefully he can learn from those experiences and just keep going forward.
From a year ago, this time to now, where have you seen Jalen's move, just his movement, not his ability, but just his movement on the field change? Is it completely different?
Oh, I don't know. It's completely different. I think he's made progress all along throughout his rehab. And again, a real tribute to him and how hard he's worked and the guys we've had working with him. But I think maybe more than anything else, I think he's moving more spontaneously now. You see him maybe get in a compromising position and react his way out of it physically, maybe better than he had before. And, that's not unique to him. Typically, when guys are coming back from injuries, that's the final step for them to get back to where they are, because you get in a lot of different positions when you're playing football. You're going against guys, you're trying to get off of blocks, you have to adjust, redirect, and when you're healthy and ready to go, those things come more naturally. And I think you're seeing a lot more of that from him.
How much of that are football related and how much of that is injury related?
Hard for me to quantify that, but I think it's probably a combination of both. He's still a young player. He hasn't played a lot of football for us at this level, but he's one of those guys who learns from his experiences. So I think you see him get more confident in that regard. But I also think just having confidence that, his foot's going to be there, his knee's going to be there, all the things that a healthy player takes for granted. And it's been a process for him. He's worked very hard to come back. And I do think you see some more of that naturalness that we saw in college. And it's fun to see.
Paul Alexander talked a little bit the other day about how he obviously worked with your brother. He knows when you're the center that you played with at Princeton. Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with him and why he was the right fit for this job?
Yeah, I've known Paul for a long time. He's been one of the best offensive line coaches in this league for a while. He was in Cincinnati for over 20 years as a line coach. He also worked with Jim McNally, who was the line coach there before, when I was playing in New York, he was our line coach up there. So a lot of connections like that have allowed this relationship to form. But, he's really an interesting guy because he's been in one place for a long time, but he's worked with a lot of different coordinators. So he's been exposed to a lot of different schemes in football, a lot of different techniques. So he's really has a broad range of knowledge about this position. And he's a really, really good teacher. And he's someone that I've really enjoyed getting to know, through the years and certainly since he's been on our staff.
How have you seen DeMarcus Lawrence grow as a leader on this team?
I think probably the ways that you see any guy grow as a leader. I think first and foremost, just providing the example every day about how we want to do things. I think when guys step into leadership roles, that's line one for them. Okay, I can't be leading anybody else if I'm not leading myself. So, being the first guy in line, going through the drills and playing the game the right way, I think that's where it starts. But then, as guys solidify themselves as starters or as some of the better players you have on your team, all of a sudden they become a little bit more vocal. If there's something that they don't like, they're not afraid to go up to somebody and say, hey, we need to do it like this. And that's a really positive sign. And we're fortunate that we have a lot of guys on our team who really fit that. They're among the better players we have, among the better players in the league, and I think that gives them some confidence to step up and lead this football team, lead some of the younger guys, and teach them how we want to do things around here.
Zeke said that he's being more vocal on the field. Have you seen that, and how much are you encouraging that?
I think it's important to empower your players. It's important to empower the leaders of this football team. We've always tried to do that, give them a voice. But again, it starts with the example they set. And they don't have to say a word. Some of the best leaders I've been around really didn't talk a whole lot. They just did it the right way. And they were very demanding of themselves. And that spread to the whole football team. And if you have a lot of guys like that, that's a really good dynamic to have on your team. So I definitely think that Zeke is more vocal. He's a very animated, passionate guy anyway. So I think that comes naturally to him. But if you watch him practice, he works the right way. He's one of those guys who breaks through the line of scrimmage and goes and scores touchdowns and finishes runs. And really that's the best sign of leadership that we can have on our team right now coming from him.
Are DeMarcus and Sean Lee taking part today, and any other guys who can't practice?
Neither of those guys will practice today.
And anybody else?
Malik Collins won't practice. Terrence Williams won't practice. Charles Tapper won't practice. Some other guys will be limited.
What's up with Tapper?
Tapper had a concussion yesterday in practice, so he left practice about midway through and will not go today.
Does this heat have any impact on how you do things this week?
Not necessarily. It's hot in Texas. It's been hot in Texas for a long time, and so that's just part of it. And we'll practice outside. I think it's good for these guys to work in this heat, and I think it helps your physical conditioning and your mental conditioning.
We talked last week about his footwork in the pocket and not making too many big jumps up because he gets his guys in trouble. Maybe be more consistent with his drops. Is it just a rep thing? Just in terms of like, hey, your 7 step is always here, your 5 is always here. Is there a feel for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you do these things literally tens of thousands of times, and I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying that. I mean, the quarterback has to own his drop on every play that he has. whether it's a 3-step drop, a 5-step drop, a 7-step drop, if you're dropping from the gun, the nuances of the play. Sometimes you abbreviate those drops based on a route you might be throwing within that. Sometimes you extend them and elongate them. Having a real sense of where you are in the pocket to help the guys up front is a big piece to this. It's something we've studied very hard with him to make sure that he's in spots where that can be advantageous for our offensive linemen. You don't want to compromise those guys by being too deep or being too shallow or drifting this way or drifting that way. And, that's typically the case with younger players. You just have to do it more and more and more. It has to become such a part of you. And, that's something we've studied. It's something he's worked on. I think he's getting better at it.
Can you quantify how many sacks that may have led to last year if he was too deep, too shallow?
Yeah, I think it's hard to do that, and that's not really the point of the exercise. I do think you want to make him aware of how he can compromise guys. But you also have to remember what it's like to play quarterback in this league. And it's easy to sit there with a clicker and say, you should have done this, you should have done this. Oftentimes when you look more closely at plays, maybe there's a guy in his face, maybe he's feeling color over here. Different things happen that cause a player to do that. But, one of the things that's really important is to try to be as consistent as you can and try to be in the spot where you need to be to execute that play, not only for yourself, but for the guys around you.
When you were looking to hire Sanjay Lal as receivers coach in January, what was the feedback you got around the league as far as his reputation goes?
Well, I've known of him for a long time, and I've had conversations with him through the years, and everything has been so positive for a long time. And at different times, we've had openings or other people have had openings, and, I've talked to him or talked to other people about him. And, he's just a very professional guy. He does a really good job coaching the technique at the receiver position, stance, route running, how you catch a football, how you tuck a football, all the different things that apply to that position. I think he does a really good job of it. He studies it. He's been around good coaches who he's learned from, and he's had a really positive impact on the players he's been around. So I've heard nothing but really good things that just reinforce what I've heard through the years.
How is Kellen Moore making this transition to coaching? How's it been for him?
Kellen's doing a really good job. As we all know, he was a very smart player for us. And, he and Scott Linehan have been together for a long time. So I think his understanding of what we're trying to do offensively is pretty thorough. And I think his understanding of what we're asking the quarterbacks to do is also pretty thorough. And he picks things up quickly. The challenge for a guy coming from being a player to a coach is now it's flipped around and you're running the meeting. You're not just the guy who's just kind of throwing things out there. And, I think he's learning how to teach. He's learning how to coach in the meeting room, during walkthroughs on the practice field. And, again, he's a really quick study. He knows football. He's a very smart guy. He understands what we're trying to do. I think he's doing a really good job.
You still have him throw a little bit just to stay?
Yeah, every so often he'll throw a little bit. And, sometimes it's funny. You'll be showing the team a play about something. Maybe you're installing a new play and you'll go back to previous clips and all of a sudden there's number 17, the lefty, delivering a strike, And so that's always a fun thing for the players to see. Even though it was just last year that he was playing, sometimes they forget already that this guy was a pretty good player when he had a uniform on. So he's done a really good job for us.
What have been your impressions of Mike White through the first 4 OTAs?
He's done a good job. We're throwing a lot at him. He's a smart guy. He's poised. He certainly is very talented throwing the football, but maybe more than anything else, he's just handling himself the right way. He's got good command in the huddle, good command at the line of scrimmage. He's been a good decision maker so far, and it's a challenging position to play because quarterbacks really need to know more than just what they're doing, and having that command is critical. And I think he's getting more and more comfortable with what we're asking him to do, and he's getting better and better.
What are you looking for from your wide receiver corps this week specifically?
Just to get better. We have a good group of guys. We have some guys who have been with us who understand what we want to do. We have some new guys who are veteran players who have been other places in this league, and then we have some young guys. So really each and every day for everybody, coaches and players alike, we're just trying to get better. I know that's a cliche answer, but that's really where our focus is. And these guys have done a really good job coming to work. They're prepared. They're ready. They learn from their experiences, and hopefully they'll get better each day.
On the Terrence Williams issue, I know you said the team will make decisions as warranted, but is this an example of the type of thing you work to have the team not be affected by? Is that more challenging with the younger team?
Oh, I think you always want to address things very directly with a player or with a team. And at the same time, you want to be very focused on what you need to do. So we certainly don't want anything that happens off the field to be a distraction to the rest of the team, and this certainly hasn't been that.
Jason, you talked at the owners meeting about making a priority of being better in the passing game this year. Do you see that as being more challenging now without Dez and without Witten, or do you think it's more plausible with the group you have?
Well, we just have to get better in that part of the game. And when I say get better, I don't mean we're going to throw it more. You know, we've had offenses around here where we've been pretty prolific throwing the football. We threw the ball a lot. We ran the ball a lot less. And then over the last few years, we've gotten really better as a football team. We've gotten stronger on the offensive line. We've added some runners who really can make a difference for us, and we've become a much more balanced team. So, you know, getting better at the passing game doesn't mean we're going to throw for more yards necessarily. It just means when you watch the tape, we got to do it at a higher level. And you know something, we got to run the ball at a higher level. We got to play a better run defense, and we got to play better pass defense. And really every part of our team has to improve. So, you know, that's really what we're focused on. So again, it's not about being more prolific or throwing it more. It's just doing it at a higher level. Quarterback position, protection, receivers routes, tight ends routes, backs routes, timing, anticipation, location of the ball, just everything about it. We're focusing on that.
Thank you.
Okay, good to see you guys.
Coach.
Bitch, I see you. Did you know I know you? Yeah, I know you.